In this section of the notes, I've blended sections 5.2 and 5.3 together. So to begin with, in the expression b to the n, b is called the base, and n is the exponent. We're going to look at some of the bases of exponential form, then we're going to move on to some rules for exponents. So exponential form. When I see something like negative 3 to the fourth as opposed to negative 3 to the fourth, they sound the same, but they are very different. Negative 3 to the fourth is negative repeated multiplication of 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So the answer is negative 81. There is a single negative and 4 3's in this form. In the form below, negative 3 to the fourth is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. There are 4 negatives and 4 3's. 4 negatives make a positive 81. Okay? Now, that can be seen maybe even a little bit more clearly. I mean, we've seen this rule with negatives and exponents before, but maybe it's going to be a little bit more clear in this next example. When I see 2x to the fifth, that's 2x times x times x times x times x. X to the fifth, or just 2x to the fifth as its simplified form. Versus 2x to the fifth in parentheses is 2x times 2x times 2x times 2x times 2x. In this case, there are 5 2's multiplied together as well as 5 x's. So I'm going to have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 32 x to the fifth. Okay, so you can see the difference or the corollaries here between when there's something not in parentheses, like in this example here, this 2 is not part of the exponent. The exponent is just on the x, so a single 2. Like here, this negative is not with the 3, it's just in front of it. So the negative stays, the 2 stays, versus where they're both in parentheses, the negative gets repeated with the 3, the 2 gets repeated with the x. Okay, so this should again make clear that negative a to the n and a to the n are not necessarily the name. This one has 1 negative, and this one has n negatives, whatever n may be, that power. Okay. Alright, in objective 1, we're going to look at the product rule for exponents. How many 5's are being multiplied together in the expression 5 squared times 5 to the sixth? 5 squared is 5 times 5, times 5 to the sixth is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Altogether, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 5's being multiplied together, or 5 to the 8. 2 5's and 6 5's for a total of 8 5's. So this rule is going to be that if you have two bases being multiplied together, collect them all, add them up. You're going to have b to the m plus n. Let's look at a few examples. Okay, if there's h to the third being multiplied by h to the fourth, that's just 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. Altogether, there are 7 8's being multiplied together, so a simpler version of that would be 8 to the 7th. X to the 6th times x to the 9th, altogether would be 15 x's in that multiplication chain, so x to the 15th is a simpler way of writing that. A to the 15th times a to the 3rd would be a to the 18th, and x squared times x to the 6th times x to the 3rd would be x to the 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 3 is 11. Okay, so that's the first rule of exponents, called the product property for exponents. When I multiply two quantities together, I'm going to add the exponents. Let's look at the next rule. If I have x squared to the fourth, well, that means x squared times x squared times x squared times x squared 4 times to be to the fourth power. So then I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, adding those up, x to the 8th. So if it's x squared times x, or I'm sorry, x squared to the fourth, we can conclude that that's x to the 2 times 4, or x to the 8th. Okay, so we're developing the next rule right here that says b to the m times n is b, I'm sorry, I'm using the property side right here, b to the m to to the n is b to the m times n. Okay, this is called the power rule, or raising powers to powers. Let's simplify these. X to the third to the fifth is x to the 15th. B to the fourth to the seventh is b to the 28th. X to the 15th to the third would be x to the 45th. And negative 20 to the third would be negative 20 to the 9th. Okay, let's go to the next rule. Xy to the fourth, well, we know that's xy times xy times xy times xy. If you write it out 4 times, we know we have got x, 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 x. So that's the same thing as x to the fourth, y to the fourth. So if I'm raising a product to a power, a to the ab, let me read this properly, ab to the n is the same thing as a to the n, b to the n. Alright, so if I have xy to the fifth, well, that's just x to the fifth, y to the fifth. Again, what we're doing up here is developing the rule, seeing why it's true, and now we're looking at using that rule down here. Alright, in part B, this will be 2 to the fourth, x to the fourth. I can go even further because I know that 2 to the fourth is 16, x to the fourth. Okay. This would be negative 4 to the third, p to the third. Notice that the parentheses on negative 4 are important. That negative is inside the parenthesis. There are 3 negatives as well as 3 4s and 3 p's. Alright, continue to simplify. Negative 4 to the third is negative 64 p to the third. And next, negative 2 to the fourth, y to the, this one's y to the sixth to the fourth. So we're going to use another rule here. Negative 2 to the fourth, that's 4 negatives, it's going to be positive 16. And y to the sixth to the fourth, those are going to multiply with that raising a power to a power rule we had a second ago to give us y to the 24th. So 16y to the 24th. Okay. So in objective 4, when I'm multiplying these monomials, I'm going to simplify them using the properties from this section. So I'm going to start by multiplying the numbers like normal. I'm going to use the appropriate property for the variables. So 3x cubed times negative 4x to the 6th will be negative 12x to the 9th. When I have x cubed times x to the 6th, I'm going to add their exponents. There's 3 x's here, 6 more here for a total of 9. Okay, and the next one. Now, there's a 4 on top of this exponent, on top of this parenthesis, so it needs to be displaced into both of those. So that's going to be negative 3 to the fourth, t to the fourth, times the 2t to the third. Okay, negative 3 to the fourth is 81. It's positive because there were 4 negatives. So we got 81 t to the fourth times 2t to the third. Okay, and then for a final answer here, 81 times 2 is 162. T to the 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay. Oops. All right, and the next one. No powers on top of parentheses, so we're just going to multiply the numbers and add up powers on the variables here. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, times 8 is negative 48. X to the 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 4 more is 7. So a total of 7 x's being multiplied together, and 2 times 3 times 8 is 48 negative. Okay, so we're going to square both parts of this parentheses here. So we have 5 squared times a to the, when I have 4th power raised to the 2nd power, we're going to multiply those together and get 8. Okay, then we have times the 3a to the 5th. 5 squared is 25. A to the 8th times that 3a to the 5th. Final answer then will be 25 times 3 is 75. A to the 13th, adding those powers up. Okay, next objective, multiplying a monomial and a polynomial. When I multiply a polynomial by a monomial, we use the distributive property. We've already used the distributive property before, just not with a variable as the part of the coefficient. So let's check this out. When I multiply 5x into this parenthesis, 5 times 4 is 20, x times x is x squared, plus 5x times 7, 5 times 7 is 35, x. That's my final answer. I can't add them because they're not like terms. And the next one, use the distributive property. 3 times 4 is 12, and it's t to the 5th. From 2t here and 3 more here, total of 5t in that expression. Minus 21, t to the 2 and 1 more is 3. Okay, distributive property again. Negative 2x times 3x squared is negative 6x to the 3rd. 2 and 1 more is 3. Plus 2 negatives make that positive. 10x, 1, 2, so squared. Oops, started writing a plus, but this is going to be negative. Minus, 2 times 4 is 8. X, there we go, minus 8x. And the next one right here, again a distribute. Negative 3x squared times negative 4x squared is going to be 12. X to the 2 and 2 is 4. Minus 3x to the 2 and 1 is 3. Plus 15x squared. Okay, I'm going to stop here. We'll start the next part in the next video.